Namaskar. Welcome to PGurus Prime Time. And today we're back with Jitendra Kumar Ojha ji as we continue this series on Indocracy. First off, let's welcome our guest, Jitendra ji. Namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, Shriji. What a delight to be with you.
Thank you, sir. The delight's all mine. As we continue, viewers, on this down this path of what is exactly Indocracy and where do we need to go in order to have a corruption-free society, there's a lot of things that we need to ask ourselves. How clean are we? How much are we personally also corrupt? And is this because we want to be corrupt, or is it because the system demands it? All these things we are going to examine today. So the most first question that I want to ask you, Jitendra ji, because there's so much to cover here. How does corruption impact our society and national security? Why do you think corruption is inbuilt in our systems? What are your thoughts, sir?
Shriji, corruption emasculates a society. It completely destroys you, it cripples you, and it destroys any space for excellence and innovation. If a society starts underperforming, naturally, its own security, safety, and life and well-being of people is impacted. But it goes way beyond that, I would say. I would say that it encourages more people not to do, not to contribute, but to plunder and loot and do all kinds of. I would say some people are working very hard. They are generating resources. They are following rules and norms, whereas you have another set of people who are not doing anything. They are busy only looting and destroying whatever is being created. So naturally, a society gets into war with itself. So if it goes beyond a certain level, I would say that it will force you to such levels of underperformance, especially in a globalized world, that you will become vulnerable. When I said there is no space for excellence and innovation, there will not be space for technological innovation. Your economic underperformance compared to China. This is a direct manifestation of, I would say, to a great extent, corruption. So I would not like to get into all the details because this is a short discussion, but I would just like to briefly highlight this. And I would add one thing. It is not possible to eliminate and destroy corruption entirely. It is part of human nature. It has to be curbed to a certain level that it does not destroy us as society completely. So that should be our objective, Shriji.
Now, how does corruption affect national security of the country?
Look, there are multiple ways because national security is not only waging war, that your industrial power, your technological capacity, your health of your population, everything is part of national security. Agility of your institutions is part of national security. What happens if there's corruption? Some people try to garner and corner all the resources. What will happen? The quality of your population will go down. If quality of your population goes down, you will have a very poor workforce, isn't it? Then if corruption is there, as I said earlier, also your technological institution will not be encouraged to go for excellence. There will be everywhere favoritism. There will everywhere where there will be nepotism, which has been there in our country. All institutions, otherwise they look nice, democratic, but from within they have been rigged. And what happens? Your adversaries would use this corruption to do what? To paralyze you from within. So I suppose that corruption is a tool. Earlier also I had said once on your program, corruption is a tool on which is used by subversion, is a vehicle on which subversion travels. And subversion need not be from external sources. Internally also, Sriji, most of the people are designed to think in a selfish way. They are not designed to think in an altruistic way. So moment there is an opportunity, they think that they can indulge in corruption and they will go scot-free. What they are going to do? They are going to destroy well-being of society and they are going to empower themselves. And this is what had happened in India at some point of time. This is where lies all the problem throughout. We have been resurrecting, we have been moving, but this is the only reason, because of corruption by some people, as a society, as a country, we have been underperforming. So I think corruption makes you seriously vulnerable in a globalized world.
And is corruption in India an outcome of greed, compulsion, or has it become a habit? Because one thing I'll tell you, a good friend of mine who is an American citizen who visits India constantly, he says, look, don't look at corruption as something that is bad, think of it as a grease on wheels. It puts grease on wheels, it lets things go faster. And he said, look, I go there, they know that I need to get these things done by the end of the day. And they know that they can demand something. Otherwise, they know that I won't be able to do it, but my return ticket is fixed. So when these kind of situations arise, by greasing the wheels, I get my work done. But this is how the system has evolved. So what are your thoughts, sir?
To some extent, he may appear correct that a lot of corporate leaders, etc., they have been saying instead of wasting time, it is better to spend some money and get going with this. I would say, you asked, your first question was whether it's part of greed or habit. I think it is a combination of all these factors are there. To answer
Greed,
your first
compulsion,
question.
or habit. Yeah.
Yeah, all these are there. There is greed. Some people feel that system is not in a position to resist them, so they have a right to get more from the system. So this greed drives them towards this corruption. There is no restraint on them, so it encourages them. Then comes need. People who are literally like this gentleman, he may not be battling for survival need, but he has a time constraint. A lot of people have time constraint, and instead of waiting for things to go perfect, etc., they would like to get going through whatever way it is possible. Another level, I would say, some low-paid government employees or anywhere, even in private sector, there's corruption. You'll be surprised. They feel that they are not being paid sufficiently, and therefore it's perfectly all right. Their needs are such that these are not being fulfilled, and they are legitimate or they are justified in taking resort to corruption. So that is there. And over the years, it has become habit. But when you say that corruption is good, this is what some of the Chinese are saying, that in China, corruption is such that it encourages industry, it rather obliges certain state functionaries to take people on board, promote them, they go out of the way, and it makes things move faster. Whereas in India, there is speed money and people block it and obstruct it. I do not agree with this. I think, yes, an interim, some people who are there in certain sectors or industrialists or corporate sectors, anyone, they may be doing it, but there has to be a much greater deterrent for corruption. I'll take a little extra time to complete this. A few years back, 10 years back, I was approached by, I used to interact with someone who was running at one of the top level. That company was listed in NYSE. My knowledge is very limited. I suppose some FTSE 50 or something like this, and one of the top power companies. And this person said that he could completely write power to India, rather get rid of India's power shortage, and it will be available at this rate. But the demand for money was so high. That's some political establishment, they were demanding 30%, and there was bureaucratic kind of thing. So he said the whole cost will get doubled, and then there are certain rules, regulations, etc. over there, and he'll be in difficulty. So what I'm trying to say here, corruption has been obstructing. A lot of facilities, in lot many ways, things could have been better, but corruption has been obstructing. So some people may have justification, but I feel corruption has no space, should not have any space at all. We cannot make things perfect. There cannot be an entirely corruption-free society, but corruption has to be curbed to the maximum extent possible so that it does not waste time of people. People know what is required to be done, and it is done. But this is not going to be possible normally, Shriji, under normal circumstances.
And can there be legal and illegal corruption? To what extent are our institutions, can the institutions curb corruption?
Yes, there can be very much legal and illegal corruption. In India, there's not much inheritance tax you must be aware of. So a lot of people who are having, the so-called corporate leaders, they have inherited billions of, in one few cases, I know, $1 billion+, and they don't pay any tax, and their children are not doing anything. They are just enjoying, and in many ways. So this I consider a kind of legal corruption. You are increasing some kind of parasitism in society. Some people will become parasite, they don't have to do anything, everything is provided for. Whereas they are intelligent people. They could have done wonders. They could have emerged as top-class corporate leaders on their own. They are not interested. So many ways there's corruption can be very much legal. You see, another way, I have always...
So are you calling, sir, are you calling inheritance or lack of inheritance tax as a legal corruption?
Beyond a certain point, it is certainly a legal corruption. Certainly a legal corruption. It does not help society in any way. I would also say, so many companies, etc., they have hired consultants, and consultants, we don't know what they are doing. So actual cost of a product is very small. But when you add all these things, consultants cost, advertisement cost, all this cost, it goes 10 times, so 12, 20 times. So I think beyond a certain point, this is also a kind of legal corruption. What we are focusing, mostly in India is a low-level corruption where systems are not functioning. I suppose corruption is there, Shri, almost everywhere. It is part of human nature. But India, what it hurts, that it has disrupted normal functioning of state, normal functioning of institutions, normal functioning of public services at one level, and it has gone beyond a certain level. It has gone beyond a certain level. We have highest component of corporate debts, bad corporate debts, and these are again underwritten. These are not properly reflected. So this is every somebody has been telling, and there are a lot of datas and other this thing I have in as part of my research work, that in every major procurement, a certain amount of money finds its way to offshore accounts or in acquisition of properties. No, in some cases 30-35%, and in some cases people say the actual cost of a project is just 25% and 75% is rest of the thing. So this kind of thing is dangerous, Shri. These are these get beyond a point. Legal and illegal corruption also gets merged.
I have a joke to share here. An Indian
Please.
member of parliament comes to United States and visits the Senate, and then he becomes friends with one senator, and the senator invites him to come to his hometown over the weekend. So they go to the Indian MP goes to the senator's house, and they are sitting down and enjoying a glass of wine, and they're looking out, and the senator looks at the MP and says, "See that?" And there's a bridge there, and the MP says, "Yeah, I see a bridge," and then the senator smiles and says, 10%. And the MP says, "Oh, okay." And then there is a return offer that the senator visit India after a few months. And the senator comes down to India, and then he goes with the member of parliament to the MP's village. And sure enough, they're having local whiskey, whatever. And then
Don't worry, Indian MPs can afford the best of whiskies.
Yes, and the Indian MP looks out, and the senator also looks out. So he says, then the senator is confused because there's nothing outside, and the Indian MP smiles and says 100%. So
very sad, very sad. It is a joke,
well,
but
it
it's
happened,
very sad.
sir.
It's reality.
It happened.
It's a reality. Yes.
This happened in Maharashtra.
I know, sir. I know, sir.
And to give you a little bit more of an outrage about this, I'm outraged because the best and the brightest minds in India, they want to kind of fortify their futures. They're doing it in like a salami tactic, foundations, They get into IITs, then they want to get into IIMs, but they're not stopping there. They don't want to stop there. They don't want to go and work for corporate. They want to sit for the Indian administrative exams. Once, twice, thrice. And you look at the toppers, like the top 10, you'll see almost all of them have taken this path. So clearly, the younger generation of India has been told that you want to make money, join the administrative services. That's how I see it. Please prove me wrong.
No, you are absolutely right, because this is one thing which will make me very unpopular with my colleagues in administrative services. I have not been in that service. In any major project, someone says that one officer has investment, first generation, struggled hard, came through these similar routes, and has investments in hundreds of millions, $100 million plus, or something like this, in various these things. So the next few generations are secure. So this is very unfortunate part, because systems are not there to check him in any way. But having said that, I would say, that even within bureaucracy, there are a large number of people with exceptional integrity, and this is what hurts, that it is only this small lobby which is so corrupt, and this small lobby is dear to almost every political establishment, or rather they are so resourceful, they are so organized, they are so flexible, they are so, you can say in a way, they are very smart, no doubt about it. Any political establishment comes, they get around that establishment, and they are very useful. They are found very useful. And this is what I said, that institutions are inbuilt. These are rigged in a way that it is impossible to curb corruption, but the larger cost which the country has to pay. And I'm sure that sooner or later, some people may run away, but everybody cannot run away, and nobody can rather escape the consequences of such kind of rampant corruption. You are absolutely right, Shriji. Sections of bureaucracy is terribly malignant, and they are extremely corrupt. But within that, I can also say there is a very small section which are extremely honest. But again, it's a very confusing thing. I will tell you one example. I'm taking a bit of time. There was one officer who I had lectured. One of the classes somewhere, and he had attended. And it was a few years back in Delhi. It was winter evening, and we were speaking at a social get-together. So he came to me after some time. He said, "Sir, I've listened to you. I've listened to your lecture there also, but I've had few drinks, so that's why I have courage to speak to you. But let me tell you." And he said, "Sir, is honesty and integrity possible? Because we get only one life." So all said and done, tomorrow, if I'm not an officer, if God forbidding there is some problem, is there any school in Delhi where I can get my child admitted without some pressure? Because people who don't have pressure or don't have this thing influence, they have to bribe in every good Delhi school to get admission for their child. What happens if tomorrow my father falls sick? Can I send him to a government hospital where he's more likely to die? These are not going to be possible. And I see all kinds of ordinary people doing all these things. So why should I deprive myself of a decent and normal existence? And once you get into it, Sri, there is no limit. So I think, the whole system is terribly rigged. And what he said is very valid, because I have seen people who have lived with honesty. They had a terrible end. Some of them went to depression. Some of them committed suicide. And it's a very bad thing they left for their families. Whereas all said and done, this is a capitalist kind of acquisitive world. So people who have money, they have a better this thing. So you cannot say, okay, we will have some rule against corruption and use it selectively. That is not going to work. But bureaucracy has a problem. Sure.
And you see, the wider impact of this unrestrained corruption is vast. In my opinion, Sergi, and I'll again give you, I don't have the names or the dots to connect, but I will give you a theme. April 20th, 2020, Chinese troops had amassed along several areas in Ladakh. This was known to India's intelligence, and India's intelligence is gathered in many ways. One of them is the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. This is a police group, but it actually, mans a wide frontier, and they have an intelligence group. They gave the intel data, but instead of it coming to the Defense Ministry or to the PMO, it goes to the Home Ministry, because ITBP comes under the Home Ministry. I'm not saying anything wrong with the Home Ministry itself. What happened was there was a written report saying that there is so much, and they have given details, so many things, all these are masked here. And this comes and sits in the drawer of a joint secretary. This man, whether he wanted to deliberately or not, just let it sit there for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, nothing happened. If India had acted faster, all this mess that now is happening could have been prevented. I'm just saying that this kind of delay, what happened? I didn't see a single note from PMO office or from the Home Ministry or from anybody saying that there were some mistakes, that these are being rectified. At the minimum, I would like that person to be suspended. Here is a matter of life and death. Your line is under challenge here, and you don't do anything about it, and nobody does anything about it. So there are only crimes of commission that get tested. There are no errors. Omissions are always errors. They don't get penalized. So this is also a problem that India has as a governing body.
This, I would say, inbuilt corruption in the system, because there is no incentive for high quality performance and there is no accountability as such. I would not like to comment much on this specific incident, Shriji, but we have to acknowledge one thing. We are having two hostile neighbors. Last year, the paper I wrote on India's national security, I had said that it's not about neighborly irritation. They have been at war with India through every possible means. And what happens? If they find that there are some people who are sellable, if there are some people who are corrupt, and there are already bribing networks and corruption networks which are flourishing in the country, naturally they would like to take use of it. And Chinese have said the best way to win a war is to win without a fight. So what do? They identify key people. And after identifying key people, what do? They somehow win them over. And there's a symbiotic relationship, because those who are undertaking corruption, etc., once you make money, you need some resources, certain things, to park this money here, there, or everywhere. So you need a specialized service. And who renders this specialized service? This specialized service is rendered by various organized crime networks. And most of these crime networks are transnational. And unfortunately, I'm not saying that this is my own opinion. I'm not going to share anything which is privileged information. I've had no access to this. I'm saying it entirely on the basis of research and this data, that they have started hiring people within government agencies. And it's not like traditional espionage networks, etc. It is very different. It has gone to an entirely different level. So I think, suspension, etc. is fine. I feel that this kind of system is in no position to restrain this, and this is where stakeholders of India, last few days we have been seeing such a large number of even some corporate leaders, their obituaries coming in newspaper. With all their money also, they could not protect themselves. So people have to realize that everybody has a stake in this system, and this kind of menace we cannot attribute, because some people who are in certain sensitive positions, some of them I had confronted. I'm a person who has a bad reputation of being too outspoken, and people have said it also. And I have been penalized, so-called, I've been targeted, not penalized, targeted by members of such cartels. So they say that, who is not corrupt? You tell me, these things, he's clean, everybody's corrupt. Why should I only be honest? So what I'm trying to say, the entire ecosystem has to be addressed, Riji. And that is why, in some way, corruption may appear harmless in certain contexts, but in other contexts, it may appear dangerous. But I feel corruption in any context is bad, and corruption in any context retards your comprehensive national power, your ability to resist external invasion, your ability to empower yourself as a country. Corruption fractures social cohesion. Corruption makes you hypocrite. Why most of Indians are considered coward and spineless, most of them? Because most successful Indians have something or the other to hide. I'm not saying all, because we have created a system that without corruption, it is very, very difficult, and it is most unlikely for you to rise high, either within India, or maybe as an Indian, even when you go outside, outsiders expect that you come with a bag full of cash. So unless and until you do some corruption here, you're not likely to land there with a bag full of cash. So this is what I would like to, this is what my views are, Shri, that we have to improve the entire ecosystem. Selectively, yes, punish them, give a deterrent punishment, but build a far better ecosystem where corruption can be destroyed or decimated.
Professor R. Vaidyanathan has come on many times on our channel, and he has said that from womb to tomb, we have corruption in India. So,
Absolutely.
Okay, admit it, yes. So how can we move forward in this direction, both in short term and long term? What is the solution? Yes, we have a mess, we have a problem. How do we make sure 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, that we work for a corruption-free society where at least the low-level corruption is easy to curb, so that people can get along with their lives in a more smooth and streamlined manner?
I would say that there has to be targeting at every level. Corruption has to be targeted at every level. We cannot restrict it to low level alone. But yes, this is not going to be possible by your courts and police institutions at all. I've always maintained that even if we set up 10,000 branches of Supreme Court and 50,000 branches of, I know, 50,000 branches of CBI, corruption is not going to be.
This is the top family. This is the top political family in the country, and they think they can get away with it. They're it's a black and white case of steel. Go ahead, sir.
And not only this, they are in limelight, so they are being spoken about. But there may be large number of families, and once these people are very powerful, they would like to subvert system. They would like to see that we don't have a transparent and efficient judiciary. They would like to see that we don't have a transparent and efficient criminal justice system. And you require money in this world to survive. So those people like me and you who are talking against corruption, you become irrelevant. Even in bureaucracy, most of the honest bureaucrats, they eventually become irrelevant. So what I'm trying to say is corruption is not a moral issue. It's not about moral indignation and something we condemn. It is a serious problem. It affects life of each and every Indian at one point of time or the other. Even those people who are sometimes beneficiaries of corruption, they have to pay a price for corruption, because all these people, so-called influential and wealthy people, not that they had been extremely neat and clean, but They have lost their life. But when you go and ask them, they say, what can I do? I don't want to be corrupt. Given a chance, I would like to be honest. But there's no space for that, because they say there is no way that they can rebuff an extortion or demand for political donation. There is no way, as you said, some bureaucratic corruption that can be done away with. And there is no way, because their rivals will be doing the same thing. So what I feel that in short term, yes, taking this thing, I wouldn't say this crisis is too bad, Shri, but still we should rather get sensitized by this crisis and undertake some deterrent punishment as far as corruption is concerned. But secondly, I would say, this is why I have been talking about Indocracy. Without reform in police, there cannot be a clean judiciary. And without clean judiciary, there cannot be clean police. And without reform in normal bureaucracy, there cannot be clean police and clean judiciary. And without reform in political parties, nothing is going to happen. So I would say, in the short run, we should rather make certain changes where, a policeman, how many cases of corruption he is able to prevent. Not only corruption, any case if a policeman is able to prevent, and on that basis, the person gets further promotions. Or similarly with judges, how many good judgments are you able to deliver, and those judgments are not called into question? There should be somebody, I think it is high time we have a Judicial Accountability Commission also, that if a judge is found to be incompetent and giving bad decisions, even that those kind of judges should be hauled. And then political parties, I have been always mentioning, I think I've been the only person who has been talking about reform in political parties. Political parties have to be reformed. These have to be segregated, because anywhere anyone is far too powerful is more difficult to restrain such entities. And we have Mughal kind of lords in these political parties, or everywhere. Mansabdars or lords. So this system has to be done away with, and we have to usher in a rule of law. But to begin with, and this will be a continuous process, it cannot be a one-time process. We have to continuously monitor and, excuse me. And I would say we have to create some kind of committee, and all these people, they should come and say that these things are needed, because it is threatening our existential interests. You see, do we deserve this thing, Shri, that we are far older civilization, we call ourselves Vishwaguru and every kind of thing? And you see where we are. Bangladesh is sending relief to us. You see, all these Central Asian countries are sending relief to us, and still, we have our elite who are smartly going and collecting these reliefs, and they have no sense of shame. And even if large number of them, corruption dehumanizes society. I did not answer all this question, what impact it has. Corruption completely dehumanizes you, and if it goes on, we will be back to cannibalistic instincts. We cannot be same forms of cannibals, but when people are profiteering out of miseries, this black marketing of medicines, black marketing of oxygen, sale of spurious drugs, what it is, isn't it a kind of cannibalism? So I think, we should start with deterrent punishment, infuse this thing, immediately go and restructure judiciary, police, and certain other institutions, even bureaucracy, give incentive for high quality this thing. This can be done in 6 months' time. But then we have to go for reform in political parties and corporate sector also, and all stakeholders who are in India. Those who are people who with credibility, those who are people with some name, they have to sit together, they have to deliberate, go beyond parliament and say that these measures are required. I have suggested all these things. I'm not sharing everything on your platform as of now, because let it come out in a very concise way in public domain at appropriate time. But these are suggestions I have, Shri.
So if, in your opinion, if you have to start the reform process, it needs to start with the police and make the police be more powerful, in the sense that they cannot be influenced by the local politician. You see, that's a good start. Now, one of the things that our political leaders did hold on, let me finish my thought. You can rebut me later. Hold on. One of the things that our political leaders did at the turn of independence, as soon as independence was achieved, they cut the salaries of all the ICS officers. They said that they should work for free. That was the mindset Gandhiji had. He even had the mindset that Congress should work for free. Okay, so there was unrealistic expectations on one side. So what had ended up happening was, at least the ICS didn't need money for at least there was a feeling that if I am in this force, I get enough money, I don't need to get bribed. Do you suggest that wherever you start, if you think that police is not the place to start but somewhere else, do they have to first address this part?
You have asked a series of questions, Shri. I would say not police. The reform has to start from political parties. political parties have to be reformed, and when I say about reform, no individual should be godlike or demigod-like, and this thing, there has to be some deliberation at this level, and there has to be filtration, there has to be some qualification. Last time also we discussed, and this qualification need not be academic qualification, and as I said, segregation of parties at different levels, so you don't have a behemoth like that we are having, and complete ban on nepotism and family. If one person from one family at one point of time, and when the next person has to come, there has to be a cooling off period of 3 years or 5 years, because then it will abolish what I say, private ownership of parties, and all these issues we are talking about, that will be done away with. Foreign intelligence agencies, if they want to subvert your system, they will target one family and they will make it sure the persons of same family or same group, they continue to rule your country. And once that happens, then comes rule of law. I would say judiciary. Without a healthy judiciary, reform in police is not possible. Both of these are symbiotic. Today, most of a Russian businessman I ran into, a very influential person, he says that wherever you can do business, you can leave your family in London because courts are cleanest over here. And in the British courts, they have huge problems. I'm not saying they are perfect, but in court, if moment you indulge in slightest of perjury, even if you're a lawyer, you will lose everything. So without a very robust judiciary, healthy police is not possible. Even over there, police is not perfect. The police has its own share of black sheep even over there. So in India is unique. We can't follow them. In India, reform has to start from political parties and to some extent corporate sector also, because leadership has to be built, not rather than dealership kind of thing. It cannot be, our corporate sector cannot be lale ki dukaan anymore. These have to be healthy corporations where, a chairman of a company, okay, he can carry away some degree of shares, etc., but his successor should not necessarily be his son. Or similarly, in a political party, your next president should not be your progeny. So that, because this is a Mughlai, this is a medieval kind of thing. This is not democracy at all. West may not have invented it. In India's context, these are required. So I would say, without reform in political party and corporate sector, no reform is possible. But the first targeting has to be police and judiciary together, because they both work together. And reform means what? And secondly, you said ICS. I am sorry. World has changed. That was a 19th century kind of ICS model, that you paratroop some people at the highest level and they work more as your loyal servants. They are more loyal to you. In a democracy, Sri, we should see that the system is for the country and the people. And that is why everybody joins at a certain level. Some people can be at a fast track level if they are brighter, but every promotion has to be determined by what? Your performance. How much skills do you know? Your output, your quality of effort, and then how do you perform as a professional and leader? And at every promotion, I would say there has to be substantial recognition. Financial needs have to be addressed. There should be no space for greed. This is a very detailed kind of thing. I have worked out various matrices of leadership indices and performance indices. As you move forward, your strategic vision, so this has to come up. But you'll be surprised that some people whom I had charged with corruption, these are people, they indulged in corruption to destroy even these documents. They were feeling so insecure. So this is not going to be easy, but I feel that this is a time, very sad time, that we have lost so many people. We move forward from here. And as I have stated, it cannot be a standalone problem, not that we target here. Once we target here, we should have a blueprint ready for all the institutions. I hope I'm clear.
Well, thank you very much, Jitendra ji. I have a few questions from our viewers. If you don't mind, I can ask you those questions.
Please.
The first question is from Arunachalam Valli Nayagam. Huge negative impact socially and economically of corruption should be taught in depth, starting from school education. Your thoughts?
Of course, I would say that this has to be taught, and the focus of school, rather than corruption we're talking about, has to be on building character. Our entire syllabus of schools is flawed, and not only schools. I've always maintained we should also empower local government bodies, municipal bodies, Gram Sabha, Gram this thing. There has to be a national vision and local implementation. Every member of the community should be taught not only corruption, but as you say, mandatory yoga and mandatory pranayam. It has to be part of life so that you're mentally healthy and you're not anxious, isn't it? But this alone will not be sufficient, Shriji. I would say there has to be universal access to security, economic security and opportunity and dignity. Once that security opportunity should not be like a dole. This is where I'm saying we have to build leadership at those levels. That Gram Sabha's job, Jila Parishad jobs is not to go and prostrate before their central party leaders, but they should be top-class leaders themselves. Like Sridharanji, if Sridharanji has to lose election, imagine if Sridharanji becomes a very effective Jila Parishad chairman. Imagine what could have happened to that district. So, people in India, we say happily ever after, we just switch a button and then the problem is there. There cannot be this kind of remote control. You turn on one thing and the problem will vanish. It will take time. And this is where I'm saying that everybody, they should give this idea, but these problems are not going to be that easy.
Well, all I can tell you about Dr. Sridharan not getting elected is I think everyone in their constituency needs to hang their head in shame. He was a selfless man, one of the most honest officials that I have ever come across. And he always did all his projects ahead of time, not even on time, ahead of time, below the budget. Most of the time he has got it below the budget. He had one very clear principle: no political interference in my projects. And that's why we have a metro that we can be proud of in almost all big cities in India. But somehow the people of Palakkad don't seem to see the things. I mean, this is truth hitting them in the face and they don't want to admit it. And I'd like some of the viewers who hail from this area, Palakkad, the constituencies that did not elect Dr. Sridharan, to give me a rational explanation as to why they found this other candidate to be superior to Dr. Sridharan. Please use civil language, and if it is not, if it is useful, we will definitely leave the comments and we'll try to reply to those things, because it's a huge downer when somebody who is very, very proper in public life comes and wants to help the population, and then this is how we treat them. This is not an isolated case. We've had the instances where an IPS officer also did not win in Tamil Nadu. His name is Annamalai. He was called the Singham of Mangaluru because he was so strict, and he was known for being very fair and very efficient. And he gave up all that and contested elections again on BJP ticket. So I can see that of the parties, BJP is trying to make a difference by trying to at least put up some candidates who can, say, okay, these are honest people, they have been honest all their lives and they want to serve their communities. Yet the community doesn't seem to want to acknowledge this thing. So how, I feel like shaking each and every one of the constituents and said, what were you smoking when you went to vote? But the point here is it reflects the majority of India. It's not a minority of India that is doing this. So in all these changes, right, let's say somebody says, okay, I need to get this thing done. Unless I bribe this guy, I will not get this thing done. How do I solve the problem? At the lower level, there are challenges like this, Jitendra ji. I think that also needs to be looked at. We can bring about political reform, police reform and judicial reform, but at the lowest level also we need to try and tackle this. Your thoughts?
Shriji, what has happened, that there has been erosion in character of our entire citizenry, because as you said, it has become part of habit. He was in a transparent profession, and what he was doing did not harm people. That's why he was not murdered or he was not killed, because rape is not something where it directly harmed too many people, and people's, at least political leadership at various levels, they have been receptive to that. In many cases, what happens, if you are really honest and you are not ruled by, but otherwise, even if you're fighting for the country, even if you're somewhere else, your enemies are going to get hold of someone within your country to target you if they are not able to target you there. So I think there has been a serious erosion in mass character. And what has happened, some people are building far too much of influence. India's 95% elite, I had said earlier also, if there's really, we go by rule by law, I'm not saying rule of law, by rule, if there's implementation of rules, they will go to jail. Do you think they would like somebody very honest? I had told you earlier, last to last episode, that there's a very senior cabinet minister who was chief minister of a state. Twice he counseled me. He said, Jitendra ji, you can decide to be honest, but you have no business, you have no power to decide whether others should be honest. He said that 20%, this is some index, he said his corruption is manageable. And he had said, not to me. And once he had said, referring to me in a much larger group of people. So evidence is there. He said that those who are at 0%, system will kill them. Because, down the line, I really admire Sridharanji. A book has to be written. How did he manage? But fortunately, he was in an area where maybe some leadership, certain people they wanted, and he was able to create a team. Same is the case with certain institutions. But wherever you are not in a transparent kind of thing, and wherever you are in a position where others feel threatened, 90% chances are that, Sri, you are likely to be killed, you are likely to be framed, you are likely to be discredited, because this people who are in this involved in this kind of corruption, they may be having small group. But when we talk about organized crime is there to patronize large scale corruption. And that is what also worries me, that if these kind of forces, they have a kind of foothold within our country, what could be larger consequences? But I agree with you, there is erosion in character of people, and maybe rest of the country or other people, they should boycott everybody from Palakkad for doing what they have done to Sridharan and showing such a bad face of India.
Well, if anything, even the Communist Party, which used to be a party of principles, is also towing the dynastic line now. The chief minister has appointed his own son-in-law as a minister in his own cabinet, and the state secretary's wife is also a minister. So things don't really look good as far as even a disciplined cadre-based party like CPM is concerned. In fact, the man has completely wiped out the existing cabinet and appointed all newbies. So this is like, it's a joke. It means that people probably were auctioning all these posts off. I'm just guessing, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, and that the highest bidder got these things. It's very sad what is happening in the country. And again, I look around, 2021 state assembly results has been a total disaster. It's going to harm the people who elected these people more than you and I. We can always look at this and say, you guys chose wrongly, but you're going to also suffer what you chose. But with that, I think we'll bring our today's discussion to a close. And we will continue looking at this thing to try and bring more shape and form to some of the reforms that we are suggesting. And Jitendra ji, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on our platform. Thank you and namaskar.